my channel. Today we are going to be doing another component of CSEC French paper 2 known as the contextual dialogue. Let's get started. So here are a few tips for when you have to do your contextual dialogue. 1. Read the cues given in the instructions, which will indicate what information needs to be included in the spaces. Number 2, read the entire dialogue before attempting to give any responses. You're going to see why this is important very shortly. Number 3, carefully observe what is written above and below the spaces where a reply is required, as they will be indicators of how you should respond. All right, keep that in mind. Number 4, submit logical and appropriate answers to ensure that the conversation flows. And lastly, be concise and avoid adding any unnecessary information, in addition to not exceeding the word limit. So those are the tips for your contextual dialogue. Let's move on to the next slide. Example of instructions and contextual dialogue cues for CSEC 2015. So it says, use 80 to 100 words to complete the dialogue between Monsieur Le Pic and the hotel receptionist by giving Monsieur Le Pic's responses. What this is telling you so far, in this dialogue, you are going to be playing the role of Monsieur Le Pic, and you have to provide the responses for Monsieur Le Pic. So there's going to be two vital persons in here. There's going to be Monsieur Le Pic and the receptionist, but you're going to be playing the role of Monsieur Le Pic. Let's continue. The Le Pic family arrives at the hotel where they had planned to spend their holiday. However, they change their minds after finding out more about the hotel and what little the area has to offer. Responses to all of the cues listed below must be included in the dialogue. 1. Greeting and confirmation of room reservation. 2. Choice of room. 3. Complaint about the room offered. 4. Displeasure with the hotel and area. 5. Client's demand. So this has contextualized what the conversation is going to be about. The cues here are letting you know the information that you must include in the contextual dialogue. So that is the information that needs to be added. Let's continue. Example of contextual dialogue from CSEC 2015. So this is what the contextual dialogue from the 2015 past paper looks like. As you can see, the parts for Monsieur Le Pic are blank, right? We only have the things that the receptionist says in the dialogue. So we are going to read the entire dialogue before attempting to give any responses. As I would have mentioned earlier, this is very important and you're going to see why. The receptionist starts by saying, Bonjour, monsieur, dame. Bonjour, les enfants. Vous avez réservé? Et pour combien de personnes? Hello, sir and ma'am. Hello, children. Do you have a reservation? And for how many persons? Now I know you guys might see this bonjour and say, wait, doesn't bonjour means good morning? Yes, it means good morning, but bonjour also means hello. Just keep that in mind. And what you see here, vous avez réservé? This literally means have you reserved? But what they're actually asking, what the person here, the receptionist, is actually asking you is, do you have a reservation? Et pour combien de personnes? And for how many persons? Then after where we are supposed to give our response, the receptionist says, ah oui, j'ai votre réservation ici et je vois que vous avez déjà payé la première nuit. Vous préférez une chambre qui donne sur le jardin ou sur la rue, monsieur? Oh, yes, I have your reservation here. And I see that you have already paid for the first night. Do you prefer a room overlooking the garden or the street, sir? And after where we are supposed to give our response, she says, D'accord, monsieur. Voici votre clé. C'est la chambre numéro 23. Okay, sir. Here is your key. It's room number 23. And what you see here in brackets says, la réceptionniste accompagne la famille Le Pic à la chambre. The receptionist accompanies the Le Pic family to the room. And then she says, voici votre chambre, monsieur, dame. Sir and ma'am, here's your room. And after the part where we're supposed to give our response, she says, mais monsieur, la chambre est assez confortable, à mon avis. But sir, the room is quite comfortable, in my opinion. So we can tell here, based on her response already, that Monsieur Le Pic is making a complaint about the room just based on what she says here. Let's go on to the next page because this is going to be on the next page. Let's look at it. So you can see it here. Désolé, monsieur, mais je viens d'offrir la chambre qui donne sur la rue à une autre famille. Sorry, sir, but I just offered the room overlooking the street to another family. Now, you see why I said reading the entire dialogue first is important, because if you remember earlier, where Monsieur Le Pic was asked, do you prefer a room overlooking the garden or the street, sir? Right? And that was the question asked before we were going to give our response here. But when you look down here, she says, sorry, sir, but I just offered the room overlooking the street to another family. So Based on what was said here, we have an idea of what Monsieur Le Pic said, right? And it has to do something with the room that is overlooking the street, which means the room that he would have asked for before was the room overlooking the garden when he was given the choice between a room overlooking the garden and a room overlooking the street. Because we can see here from what the receptionist says, she just offered the room overlooking the street to another family. Then after we were supposed to give our response here, she says, de 7 heures à 8 heures. Mais ce petit déjeuner est le seul repas que nous servons ici. From 7 to 8 o'clock. But breakfast is the only meal that we serve here. Then after that, she says, pour les enfants, à vrai dire, il n'y a rien. Et pour les adultes, il y a seulement la cathédrale à 50 kilomètres d'ici. For children, to be honest, there isn't anything. And for adults, there is only the cathedral 50 kilometers away from here. After the response given by Monsieur Le Pic here, which is blank for the moment, the receptionist says, oui, mais vous pourriez louer une voiture, monsieur. Yes, but you could rent a car, sir. And at the bottom here, the receptionist says, désolé, aucun remboursement possible. So sorry, no refunds are possible. So we can guess what Monsieur Le Pic said based on the receptionist's response right here. So now we looked at the entire dialogue. Let's move on to the next slide. So now we are going to be completing a contextual dialogue, which is the one from 2015, step by step. So remember, I also said in the cues earlier, when you are attempting the contextual dialogue, please carefully read what is written above and below, because that is going to give you an idea of what you need to say. Let's go through this again. Bonjour, monsieur, dame. Bonjour, les enfants. Vous avez réservé? Et pour combien de personnes? Hello, sir and ma'am. Hello, children. Do you have a reservation? And for how many persons? All right, our part here is blank for the moment. Then the receptionist says below here, ah oui, j'ai votre réservation ici et je vois que vous avez déjà payé la première nuit. Vous préférez une chambre qui donne sur le jardin ou sur la rue, monsieur? So the top bit here is what is important. After we give our response here, she's going to say, ah oui, j'ai votre réservation ici et je vois que vous avez déjà payé la première nuit. So, next important thing to do from here, whenever you are looking to give a response for the contextual dialogue, always refer back to your cues. Remember, the cues are going to let you know the information that needs to be included in your dialogue. So, as you see here, we have 5 cues. And the first cue says, greeting and confirmation of room reservation. So that has to be the first thing that we have to do here in this dialogue. We have to greet the person and confirm our room reservation. If you look here, the response is given here. I have written the response here where Monsieur Le Pic says, bonjour madame, oui, au nom de Daniel, et c'est pour 4 personnes. Hello, ma'am. Yes, under the name Daniel, and it's for 4 persons. Remember, the cue here is for Monsieur Le Pic to give a greeting and confirm his room reservation, right? Remember, the cue had said greeting and confirmation of room reservation. And here we said, bonjour, madame, right? This is the greeting. Oui, au nom de Daniel, et c'est pour 4 personnes. This is confirmation of room reservation. So now that has been incorporated into the dialogue. And one of the things you want to do is when you put your response, you want to read everything that has been done so far. You want to read what you put here so far, right? In the context of what has been said above and below to see if it fits, right? And that's going to tell you if it's a good response or not. So we read the top again where it says, bonjour monsieur, dame, bonjour les enfants, vous avez réservé et pour combien de personnes? Hello, sir and ma'am. Hello, children. Do you have a reservation and for how many persons? Hello, ma'am. Yes, under the name Daniel, and it's for 4 persons. Oh, yes. Ah oui, j'ai votre réservation ici et je vois que vous avez déjà payé la première nuit. Vous préférez une chambre qui donne sur le jardin ou sur la rue, monsieur? Oh, yes, I have your reservation here. And I see that you have already paid for the first night. Do you prefer a room overlooking the garden or the street, sir? So based on what we have just read, we can see that our response that we put there fits the context perfectly. It is not misplaced. Remember, the next thing you have to do here is to read what is here and what is below here before you can decide to put your response here. So, as we just read, oh, yes, I have your reservation here. And I see that you have already paid for the first night. Do you prefer a room overlooking the garden or the street, sir? Our part is blank, and we can see after that, she says, d'accord, monsieur. Voici votre clé. C'est la chambre numéro 23. So based on the question that was asked here, and based on the response that was given here, when she says, okay, sir, here is your key. It's room number 23. The fact that he's being given the key at this point means he would have chosen what room he wanted. Also, remember, when we read the entire dialogue, we would have noticed that later down, there was a mention about the room overlooking the street, which means the room that he chose right now would be the room overlooking the garden. And we're looking back at the cues for the contextual dialogue, which is always important. You always want to look back at your cues to know what information needs to be included in the dialogue. So here we have already completed the greeting and confirmation of room reservation. So the next bit of information that you need to include in the dialogue is choice of room. So here we put Monsieur Le Pic's response. Une chambre qui donne sur le jardin. A room overlooking the garden. Remember, the cue here is for Monsieur Le Pic to choose which room he wants. That is why the cue has been labeled choice of room, because Monsieur Le Pic is supposed to choose the room that he wants, right? So now we have included that into our dialogue. So let's see if it makes sense within the context of our dialogue. So the question was, vous préférez une chambre qui donne sur le jardin ou sur la rue, monsieur? Do you prefer a room overlooking the garden or the street, sir? And we say une chambre qui donne sur le jardin. A room overlooking the garden. And the receptionist says, d'accord, monsieur. Okay, sir. Voici votre clé. Here is your key. C'est la chambre numéro 23. It's room number 23. And then in brackets, it says, la réceptionniste accompagne la famille Le Pic à la chambre. The receptionist accompanies the Le Pic family to the room. Then the receptionist says, voici votre chambre, monsieur, dame. Here is your room, sir and ma'am. Our part here is blank. And below, the receptionist says, mais monsieur, la chambre est assez confortable à mon avis. But sir, the room is quite comfortable in my opinion. So above, she says, here is your room, sir and ma'am. And then below, she says, but sir, the room is quite comfortable in my opinion. So let's look at what the cue wants us to do next. It says complaint about the room offered, right? So let's take a look back here. Here at the bottom here, she says the room is quite comfortable in my opinion. And above here, she says, this is your room, sir and ma'am. So we make our complaint here. And what would be a good complaint for a family of 4? The response is written right here. Cette chambre est trop petite. This room is too small. Now, this would be a very appropriate response and logical one, given that this is a room for a family of 4, and if for you the room is too small, that would be a valid complaint. Remember, the cue here is for Monsieur Le Pic to make a complaint about the room offered. And in this case, what we have chosen here is to say that the room is too small. Cette chambre est trop petite. So we include that into our dialogue. Let's see if it makes any sense. Voici votre chambre, monsieur, dame. Here is your room, sir and ma'am. This room is too small. Cette chambre est trop petite. Mais monsieur, la chambre est assez confortable, à mon avis. But sir, the room is quite comfortable in my opinion. So we can see the answer that we placed here in between what was said here above and what was said below fits the context perfectly. Now let's look at what is written here and what is written below here so we can have an idea of what we're going to say here. Mais, monsieur, la chambre est assez confortable à mon avis, but sir, the room is quite comfortable in my opinion. And then here is blank. Then the receptionist says here, désolé, monsieur, mais je viens d'offrir la chambre qui donne sur la rue à une autre famille. So, it would be reasonable at this point, given that Monsieur Le Pic started to complain about the room, and then the receptionist wants to say that the room is quite comfortable in her opinion. And then when we see here, she says that she offered the room overlooking the street to another family, would indicate that Monsieur Le Pic asked for the room overlooking the street. So let's look at our Cues, again, remember to whenever you're going to give a response, always refer back to your cues. This is important. Always remember this. Referring back to your cues are essential to know if you're putting the right response for Monsieur Le Pic. So basically, given the information that we're going to need to add here, we're still going to be at complaint about the room offered. Because as you can see here, Monsieur Le Pic wants the other room. So it's still a complaint about the room offered. So that is the cue that we're responding to. So what we have here is nous ne la prenons pas. Donnez-nous l'autre chambre, s'il vous plaît. So we are not taking it. Give us the other room, please. Remember, the cue here is for Monsieur Le Pic to make a complaint about the room offered. So we're still on that. We have included that part into our dialogue. Let's see if it makes sense. But sir, mais monsieur, la chambre est assez confortable à mon avis. But sir, the room is quite comfortable in my opinion. Nous ne la prenons pas. Donnez-nous l'autre chambre, s'il vous plaît. We are not taking it. Give us the other room, please. Désolé, monsieur, mais je viens d'offrir la chambre qui donne sur la rue à une autre famille. Sorry, sir, but I just offered the room overlooking the street to another family. So it does indeed fit the context. Let's move on. And below here, the person says, after we're supposed to give a response here, the receptionist says, de 7 heures à 8 heures, mais ce petit déjeuner est le seul repas que nous servons ici. From 7 to 8 o'clock, but breakfast is the only meal that we serve here. So based on the receptionist's response, we can tell that Monsieur Le Pic asked a question about breakfast. And based on what has been said here, obviously, Monsieur Le Pic has to respond to the fact that the receptionist said that she just offered the other room to another family. So as you can see here, we have to do two things. We have to respond to what the receptionist says here and ask a question about breakfast. And the fact that the receptionist stated the time of breakfast, we can assume that Monsieur Le Pic asked a question in relation to breakfast, the time of breakfast. So we're still making a complaint about the room offered. So here we have, c'est une blague. Je suppose que nous n'avons pas de choix. À quelle heure est le petit déjeuner? Is this a joke? Or this can also be translated as, are you kidding me? I guess we don't have a choice. He's basically making peace with the fact that he doesn't have a choice in this situation because there were only 2 rooms to begin with. So I guess we don't have a choice. What time is breakfast? Remember, the cue here is for Monsieur Le Pic to make a complaint about the room offered. So he asked for the other room, and the reply that was given indicated that the other room that he asked for was already given to another family. And as a response that aligns with what the cue is asking, right? We ask, is this a joke? Because in this case, you're still complaining about what is going on. So asking, is this a joke, right? Is an indication that, you know, you are not pleased with what is going on. So it still acts as a complaint. So let's see how that fits into our dialogue. So at the top, it says, désolé, monsieur, je viens d'offrir la chambre qui donne sur la rue à une autre famille. All right, sorry, sir, but I just offered the room overlooking the street to another family. C'est une blague. Je suppose que nous n'avons pas de choix. À quelle heure est le petit déjeuner? Is this a joke? I guess we don't have a choice. What time is breakfast? De 7 heures à 8 heures, mais ce petit déjeuner est le seul repas que nous servons ici. From 7 to 8 o'clock. But breakfast is the only meal that we serve here. So you can see that fits in the context of the conversation. So let's continue. So in order to figure out what we're going to say here, we have to read what is said below here. Because remember, what is said after we give a response can also indicate that we ask a question or we give some kind of response here that the person afterwards, responded in a particular way, if that makes any sense. So again, from 7 to 8 o'clock, but breakfast is the only meal that we serve here. So the receptionist says here, pour les enfants, à vrai dire, il n'y a rien. Et pour les adultes, il y a seulement la cathédrale à 50 kilomètres d'ici. For children, to be honest, there isn't anything. And for adults, there's only the cathedral 50 kilometers away from here. So based on these two responses here, we have an idea of what we might say. But always remember, you must refer back to the cues to see what needs to be added next. So our next cue says, displeasure of the hotel and area. So what I have written here is, vous n'offrez que le petit déjeuner? Quel hôtel! C'est incroyable! Il y a des endroits près d'ici pour les enfants et les adultes? You only offer breakfast? What a hotel! This is unbelievable. Are there any places nearby for children and adults? So let's see if that fits in the context of the dialogue. All right, so above here we have from 7 to 8 o'clock, but breakfast is the only meal that we serve here. You only offer breakfast? What a hotel! This is unbelievable. Are there any places nearby for children and adults? Right here, you can see this is a complaint specifically about the hotel. And why is because the hotel, based on what the receptionist said, which was that they only offer breakfast. Breakfast is the only meal that they offer there. So that's more a complaint about the hotel. So after we said what we said here, you only offer breakfast. You only offer breakfast? What a hotel! This is unbelievable. Are there any places nearby for children and adults? And then in her response, she says, pour les enfants, à vrai dire, il n'y a rien. For children, to be honest, there isn't anything. Et pour les adultes, il y a seulement la cathédrale à 50 kilomètres d'ici. And for adults, there is only the cathedral 50 kilometers away from here. So now we can see that our response fits in the context of the dialogue. Now we have to see what we have to say for this part of the dialogue. In order to figure that out, we have to see what is said here, which below the receptionist says, oui, mais vous pourriez louer une voiture, monsieur. Yes, but you could rent a car, sir. So above here, the receptionist says, for children, to be honest, there isn't anything. And for adults, there's only the cathedral 50 kilometers away from here. And below here, she says, yes, but you could rent a car, sir. So in order to get an idea of what we're going to say here, we are going to refer back to the cues again. And we can see, based on what the cue says here, we're still on the cue, which says displeasure with the hotel and the area. So far, we expressed displeasure with the hotel. So at this point, it would be about the area, right? Because we already expressed our displeasure about the hotel. So now we are going to express our displeasure with the area. So after the receptionist said what she said, what I wrote here is, quoi? Ce quartier n'a rien à offrir. Il y a des bus qui passent par là? What? This area doesn't have anything to offer. Are there any buses that pass by here? So remember, the cue here is for Monsieur Le Pic to express his displeasure with the area. That is important to keep in mind. Let's see how it fits into our dialogue. So here, for children, to be honest, there isn't anything. And for adults, there's only the cathedral 50 kilometers away from here. Quoi? What? Ce quartier n'a rien à offrir. This area has nothing to offer. Il y a des bus qui passent par là? Are there buses that pass by here, pass through here? Oui, mais vous pourriez louer une voiture, monsieur. Yes, but you could rent a car, sir. So we can see that our response fits perfectly within the context. We give a reaction to what was said here, which was quoi? Ce quartier n'a rien à offrir. And what we said here, il y a des bus qui passent par là, fits in perfectly with the response given here. So now our part here is blank again, where we have to give our response. So remember, it's important to read what is written below. So here we have, yes, but you could rent a car, sir. And below here, the receptionist says, désolé, aucun remboursement possible. Sorry, no refunds are possible. So before giving a response, first let's refer back to the cue and see what information needs to be added. So this last cue says client's demand. Client's demand. The receptionist says, sorry, no refunds are possible. So based on that response, we can assume that what Monsieur Le Pic asked for, or what he demanded, was a refund. So based on that knowledge, we give our response. J'en ai marre de cet hôtel. Remboursez-moi immédiatement. I am fed up with this hotel. Reimburse me immediately. So remember, the cue here is for Monsieur Le Pic to express his demand as the client. That's why the cue was entitled Client's Demand. And what you're demanding here is a refund. So let's see if that fits in with the context of the contextual dialogue, context of our dialogue. So above here it says, yes, but you could rent a car, sir. I am fed up with this hotel. Reimburse me immediately. Sorry, no refunds are possible. So we can see that fits in the context of our dialogue. So we have fulfilled all the cues, which means we have successfully completed our contextual dialogue. So here is an example of a completed contextual dialogue. All right, guys, so that was our completed dialogue. I hope everything was clear, and if you have any questions, you can always email me at thateasylanguage@gmail.com. So, credits. Got a bigger Unsplash for all the nice images you see in this PowerPoint presentation. You understand? And credits to CSEC, right, where we got this past paper question from. Here are some resources that I'm going to leave for you down in the description that you can use in addition to this video that you have just watched. Merci pour votre attention et à plus.
No way.